Welcome back to the Believe in Badgers podcast on the Believe Podcast Network, presented by betonline.ag. Once again, I'm Matt Perkins, joined, as always, by Badger legend, the Hebrew Hammer himself, Matt Bernstein. Bernie, appreciate you being here today, even if you are not quite at 100%.
Oh, I've been napping all morning. I told my wife I had a day like hers. She could sleep till like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Dude, it's crazy. But yeah, listen, I can't miss. Every day again is a holiday on the podcast with you, Matty P. But I'm going to let you run with this. This is like your wheelhouse.
This is my wheelhouse because you listeners know how much we, but especially me, love track and field, Badger track and field. And we have the fastest Badger in history today.
So cool.
L.O. Johnson, Waunakee's own L.O. So good to have you here today. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me, man. I'm excited for it.
Of course. And thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. You are out in Long Beach right now as we are talking, prepping for a meet. But before we do that, want to remind you guys that we are presented by betonline.ag, where they continue to be your number one sport and your number one source for all of your online sports wagering needs. You name it, they've got it over there at BetOnline. Baseball season's in full swing. NBA playoffs are here. So make sure you're heading over to BetOnline for all of your wagering needs. Use your mobile device or head over to the website to sign up today and use our promo code BELIEVE. That's BLEAV for a 50% bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. But yeah, so for folks you don't know, L.O. is a sprinter on the track team, senior season, and he's been getting after it, both indoors and outdoors. So, but we're going to go back. We're going to go back because it's been an interesting journey, to say the least, to get you to Madison to where you are today. So start us back. Let's go way back. Did you grow up in Waunakee? I know you went to high school there, but are you born and raised, in the Madison area?
Yeah, I was born in Madison, raised in the Madison area as well. I spent some time in Beloit with my grandmother, a lot of time there. So I have family down there. I'd go down there plenty of weekends, and most of my summers I spent down there with my friends and family. So in between Beloit and Waunakee as well.
So you're definitely a native. So first of all, when did you realize that you were faster than everyone else?
Man, I honestly, that's a good question, because there was most of my time in my life I was seeing a lot of people's backs in racing. It's a joke that I heard as a kid that they were building a new Walmart in town. And I was wondering, like, what's this joke? What's this joke? And the guy would tell me between you and me. So that just lets you know how big of a distance it was from me and the guys I'd race growing up. So
that's a funny joke. I'm not gonna lie, that's pretty funny.
Yeah, and he always would tell it to me growing up, and I'm thinking, like, what is this joke, man? Like, I just never got it till I asked where, and then he finally told me. But yeah, so I grew up racing people on the playground set, just this fence to the other fence, or even in just backyard playing sports. But I never really had a moment where I'd say I feel like I was faster than people I've raced. So.
Well, and it wasn't just track that you were doing, obviously. You were a standout football player as well. What other sports are you playing growing up? And then so how do you start to focus in on football and track?
Yeah, well, I've done all the sports. Fortunately, my parents put me in, a lot of activities outside of sports, the violin, piano, and then, the typical sports, the soccer, all of those things. But, I always wanted to be playing football and running track. Even if I was playing basketball, our team, we won state growing up multiple times, and all these other sports. But, the ones I gravitated to was definitely football and basketball. It's funny because, back then, playing football, it was more of a natural thing with my speed. So it kind of just felt like my gift played well in those two worlds.
When do you actually realize you're like, man, I literally am burning all these people? Like, when does that happen? It's never happened for me. So it must be an interesting thought of like, no one can catch me. Like, when does that happen?
Honestly, I would say it still hasn't happened yet. 'Cause the funny thing about track is, there's always a faster time. And for the most part, there's always somebody faster. So if you run faster times, you get put into faster heats, and then you run against even faster people. So it's always like another level. But I mean, it's always fun because of that same reason. There's always another level. I mean, even people who've been fortunate to climb to the pinnacle of the sport, breaking world records, multiple Olympic champions, that they can have the challenge of doing it again. That challenge is almost what most people say is harder, to being a champion again and again and again. And that challenge is something, I look forward to.
Have you always been someone who's attacked those kind of challenges?
I feel like I've always had that kind of mindset, I guess. Ever since I was younger, it's always been, what's the next thing and how can I get better? It's funny because, if you ask my parents about it, they'll make jokes about it because, ever since I was a kid, I've been the type of person to figure out how can I get 1% better at this, or how can I get better in this way? Can I try training this way? All these different things. Just taking that dive into the sports kind of been just a part of me.
Now, you said you had a lot of interest. You were doing piano and violin. How did you? Are you still playing any instruments? Are you still being musical these days?
No, the musical side of me is kind of I don't want to say it died off. It's just not as prevalent. So that was that's just kind of part of my development as a person. I'm just grateful that I've had the opportunity to explore these things, and the commonality of all of them is, I figured out at a young age that the passion aspect of it was going to take me a lot further than the actual, I'd say maybe the end goal of it. Some people, you start doing something, you immediately think like, how can I reach this pinnacle of Mozart, but I feel like that passion aspect was something I learned at a young age, that if I wasn't really passionate about it, or it didn't, it wasn't on my mind the first thing I wake up or when I go to bed, that it wasn't something that I was going to be able to dive that deep into. So
how did you get to Wisconsin?
Yeah, well, everyone in my family is a Badger, from my mom to my dad. And even before them, my grandpa, he's been tailgating at the games, and my uncle's a tailgater. So I remember being maybe like 5 years old and just always being around Badgers, always being, at the tailgates, going to the games, going in the locker rooms, meeting Mr. Alvarez as a kid, and, watching Badger legends like you. And just, it's honestly a blessing because, a lot of people get the opportunity to like realize their dreams, but the moment to be like grateful and present in it is something that, I'm also grateful for, because there was a point in time where, was what's this and what's next, instead of just kind of being in the moment with it, because being a Badgers, it means the world to me. I got the opportunity to follow my dad's footsteps and then hear stories about them. And it's funny, and even practice in the Shell, the same place they practiced at. So if you know anything about the Shell, that's it's a grind in there. So
it's definitely a grind in there. Well, you took a bit of a circuitous route though, because coming out of high school, you had a bunch of offers to play college football, and you took one at New Mexico with Bernie, your former defensive coordinator, Kevin Cosgrove. And so how did you, what made you decide to say, hey, I'm going to leave, not just like Madison, not just the state of Wisconsin, not just but like the Midwest entirely. What makes you say, I want to go to New Mexico for this next step of my life?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that went into that decision. The opportunity to run on New Mexico's world-class indoor facility. And then, they were running a triple option at the time. And, I felt like my speed would work well in that offense. Wasn't really trying to be the dive back, more the pitch back guy, and really be featured in those ways. And I thought that worked well for me. And then, Coach Cosgrove, he's a great recruiter and a great coach, a great person, a great mentor. He still reaches out to me. It's good to know that I had the opportunity to meet such a great person in this recruiting game, because you never know what you're truly getting until you get to the university. And, everything I talked about with Coach Kaz about, the opportunity ahead of me and how he was going to take care of me as a person from Wisconsin, go all the way to Albuquerque, New Mexico. You know, it meant the world to me. I still remember the day he came into our house on the visit at home. And him and my dad clicked well because, you know, my dad's from Gary, Indiana. He grew up in that Indiana area as well. So it was kind of, it felt comfortable, right? It felt like someone I could trust and believe in his word. Great coach too, right? Like Coach Cosgrove's amazing.
So what was that transition like?
Mm-hmm. You know, it was definitely hard. But I'm honestly really grateful for it because I've learned more about myself. You know, everybody talk about the opportunity you have in college, but, you know, I had the opportunity to, you know, test the structure I've had as a person. You know, my parents would have breakfast for me when I wake up, and then when I come home, they have dinner. And there's certain things that you get brought up as a young child, as a young adult living in a household that when you get away, you get the opportunity to, you know, completely double down on those morals or, you know, explore as a person. And I'm grateful that, you know, I had that opportunity because, you know, there's days where I'll look up and it's 9 o'clock and I haven't talked to my parents yet. Like, how is it 9 o'clock and I went through a whole day of track practice, football practice, class, and I didn't even think about, you know, communicating with the people that helped me get there. So definitely when COVID kind of hit, that played a huge role in realizing, like, man, the people I love have helped me every step of the way. And this journey of going to New Mexico has taught me everything that they've taught me. It's been true. It's been real. And it's the person I want to be when I grow up. So, you know, having that opportunity to mature in that way was tremendous. So, you know, it's kind of hard to sum up how much you learn when you go off to college, right? It's like taking the chains off. But man, I feel like I just grew so much and learned so much. And that experience out of New Mexico has really prepared me well. So.
What was the hardest part for you in just effectively choosing track over football? Because you'd always been doing both. What's the hardest part of that decision for you, and how do you come to that decision?
Well, it's funny, you know, like I wouldn't necessarily say I chose track over football. I really chose whatever route I could get home and compete in front of my family. Because, you know, even, you know, if you go out and win a race without having your family there to celebrate with you, it's almost kind of, it's a weird feeling because, you know, I do it for those hugs after the race. I do it to see my parents smile. I do it to be able to bring the people around me together at a track meet and just enjoy 9 seconds or 6 seconds or 30 seconds total of race to come all the way to New Mexico it's kind of hard, right? So having the opportunity to do it home, whether it's been football or track, was something that, you know, I had to try to see how it happened.
Was COVID an issue? Is COVID what brought you back?
Yeah, you know,
because the season was canceled, right? So first off, walk us through like what's that like?
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy because I remember being at the conference championship, and then like a week later thinking like, you know, I can't wait for outdoor. Like I had a good indoor season, which was kind of a breakthrough. I was coming off of a football injury. I didn't know how I was going to be able to compete for track because I was sidelined for like maybe 3 or 4 months. So then I was just so excited because I was able to get back to a level where I could compete well at conference. And then I was excited for outdoor because I felt like I was getting my feet back underneath me. And then just to have everything just shut down. The world shut down. We couldn't get access to the facilities. And just so much unknown, right? Like I feel like I have a scratch in my throat. Do I have COVID? Do my family have COVID? Should I do this? Should I do that? Having that unknown and everything shut down really put things into perspective, right? Even, you know, going out winning a championship, but not having my family there to celebrate with me, you know, it's almost like it's hard to put into words. It's not really what I aim for, at least as an athlete. So it made me realize, man, like no matter going out and doing all of these things without my family there and the people I love, it doesn't really mean much to me. So I'd say like just how everything shut down just really made me realize how grateful I am for what I do have.
Believe in Badgers is excited to be brought to you by Infinigods. Infinigods is a gaming studio with a suite of free, fun-to-play games centered around ancient mythologies and civilizations. Visit Infinigods.com to play their first game, Infinimerge, and learn about their upcoming tower defense game. Play for fun or play to compete and take your shot at winning digital collectibles. That's Infinigods at Infinigods.com, unleashing the power of blockchain games.
And then what's the transfer experience like? Like, what made you say Wisconsin's where I want to be? Your family, it seems like, but how do you start that process, and what's that process?
Yeah, it's funny because like when I entered the portal, no track coaches contacted me. It was all football coaches. Because I entered the portal as a football athlete. When that's the predominant sport you're doing, they're paying the bills, they're paying the scholarship. That's what you enter as. So I was thinking like, man, these football programs are reaching out, but that's all the way in Ohio. That's in Maryland. Like I wanted to go home. So that's when I started to get some interest in track and field. And then, reached out to Coach Jackson. And then, we communicated in the recruiting process. And then that ball started rolling. And then there was a couple other teams that came in late. And that kind of made things interesting because I couldn't really take official visits at the time during COVID. It was more virtual visits. I could go visit the campus, but it wouldn't be a legitimate official visit.
It's not guided. Yeah,
it's not guided. Correct. So that made things interesting because, I wanted to visit these campuses, but I also wanted to be home. I wanted to be a Badger. So when a couple of schools in the Big Ten came in, it made it interesting because it's close to home, but it's not really home.
And so then it becomes Wisconsin and you get there. What is it? What's the feeling you have when you have your first meet back in Wisconsin in front of your family?
Mm-hmm. It's funny because it meant a lot. Putting on that W for the first time. I remember just being so excited to get my gear. It felt like I was a freshman in college again. Like, man, I can't wait to get my backpack, get the gear, get the clothes. To the point where it felt like maybe we didn't even have gear for like 2 weeks on campus because just the way to get the ball working. But it felt like it was forever. Like, man, I want to get my Wisconsin shirts on at practice. I'm going to do all of this stuff.
Did you do all the Wisconsin stuff and get a scooter too?
Yeah, get a scooter. The moped was shortly after. A lot of people got these e-scooters now. Have you seen those e-scooters on campus?
No.
The ones that like you stand on and go?
Yeah, it's like a really fast electric scooter.
Interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, man, just looking at my family in the crowd and just seeing how happy they was, it made me more motivated. It made me more focused to just continue to have more opportunities to have my family there. So to try to sum it in words, it's a little bit difficult because it's like summoning something you wanted your whole life in words. It's hard.
That's beautiful, though. Like, that's really beautiful. I think that's a wonderful thing. And, one of the reasons that I've been dying to get you on the podcast for a long time, as both of you will attest, is that, you're very public about like your how much your family means to you and stuff like that. And so, you're off of the track. You're driven by your family. What else is sort of driving you? What else makes LO tick on a daily basis? And what makes you, outside of the track and field world, like what gets you excited?
Just the daily challenges, right? So this past couple of months, I was dealing with an injury, and just the opportunity of like, okay, how can I overcome this injury? What's the things I can do better, 1% better every day to get better on my hamstring overall as a person, as an athlete. So, track is a highly individual, highly competitive sport. It feels like it's it's one of the purest sports you can possibly do. Like when you're on the track, it's a direct result of what you've done up to that point. You can kind of hide in other sports with like team and all those other things, but in track, there's really no hiding. So that's a motivation factor of, just seeing how can I get better every day. Seeing the things that my parents accomplished in the sport, not just in track and field. My dad accomplished things in football that motivates me, because I don't know how he did both of those things at such a high level. And just seeing how can I continuously improve, not just as an athlete. You talk about outside of the sport. I feel like I say this often, but I want to be able to be there for my family the way that they've been there for me. I want to be able to, motivate people the ways that I feel like I was motivated. Because there was a legitimate point in time where in sports, it just felt like it wasn't clicking. It felt like I didn't know how to even practice well any days. So to be an opportunity to continue to excel in the sport and get better every day, it's like a feeling it just never gets old, right? So just trying to improve every day and trying to get my teammates to the point where we can all continuously love the sport. It's awesome, right? So it's pure.
So let's go to a track meet, because I was on my high school track team, and track meets, or like the weekend meets, spanned all day. You got on the bus, you get there, you set up a tent, and you're there all day.
Yeah.
And you compete for 1 minute, or I was a thrower, so you threw it 3 times, and then if you made it, you went to the
finals. Yeah.
So
throw it 3 more times.
You throw it 3 more times. It's such a meathead. I do love what you're saying, because it really is like you against the world, and it is such an individual, it's such a pressure cooker sport for just you. So what's like a track meet like for you? Like, do you joke around? Are you sitting around? Are you like in your own area? Like what's a day like at a track meet for you?
Yeah, I guess, I definitely joke around. I have fun with my teammates. But man, when it's time to compete, it's almost like it's a very serious environment for me. Like I take the sport extremely serious every day in practice. And even at the meets, I take it even more serious, because at the end of the day, it's only going to be one winner each race. And a majority of the people are going to lose at the end of each event, each race. So, it almost feels like sometimes you're out there and it's like, you kind of feel like a gladiator, right? It's like, I'm trying to compete against everybody. And then to compete against them, I have to beat myself today. So it's, the environment in track and field's funny. It's even different for girls. Like the girls are stone cold killers on the track. Like they won't talk to their opponents. They're straight faced. At least the guys will say good race and things like that. It's a little more of a gamesmanship on the girls' side. So I guess it kind of depends on the guys for the girls, but it's truly like a gladiator sport, man. You're going out there and you're trying to beat everybody.
Well, I feel like you mentioned gladiator sport. I feel like your armor is when you put the sunglasses on.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And so talk to me, like, when did you start? Because you wear sunglasses in every race, right? Indoor, outdoor, doesn't matter. When did you start doing that? And and is that like what's your routine before a race? Like what are you, is there a certain music you're listening to every time? Like walk us through that process. And then, because I imagine like you put the sunglasses on, you become like RoboCop, and like or like the Terminator. You're just out there like no one can mess with me. Like how does that work?
Yeah, it's definitely similar to it, right? It's kind of like putting on your armor, right? Like I put on my cross because I run for God's glory, and it is just grateful that He even brought me to this point. If you look at like athletes' progressions, a lot of people would say I wasn't supposed to be in the position I am. So I'm grateful that God has proved a lot of science and a lot of data wrong. That you can do whatever you want. So yeah, it's definitely like putting on my armor. It feels like I'm going to war, right? I'm putting on the shades, I'm putting on the armor, I'm putting on my spikes, and the music I'm listening to, it's putting me in the zone to execute, to try to be the best I can be for 10 seconds, 9 seconds, 6 seconds, 19, whatever the seconds of the race is. I have to be at my absolute best for this amount of time. So yeah, it's definitely like when I put on the shades, it's hard to explain the words. It's almost like an alter ego, right? I become Lawrence with the shades on or something. I don't know. It just makes me feel like I'm ready to go.
What's the music you're listening to?
Oh, I mean, I listen to a lot of different music, so I kind of base it off of like where I'm at. If I'm feeling a little flat, I'll listen to some music that would bring me up. But if I'm like way too excited for this race and I need to come down, I'll listen to classical music to bring me down. I feel like classical music and that genre of music allows me to picture my race well as a lot. So
it's not so much classical music before a football game.
Oh, no chance. Right? It's two completely different things, right? It's like
totally.
Football is like we call it preparing for war, right? In football, it's the same mentality. I got to go out here and go to war against this team with your guys. But then in track, it's like you go to war every day in practice too. Like we're running 400s. Like for track, you got to be willing to go to practice and die. It's like we got 5 400s at 50 seconds or whatever the pace may be. It's like, okay, I know that today is the day. If I don't do this, I won't get better. But so yeah, like preparing for a track meet, it's you and your own thoughts, right? It's not like you can have a teammate to lean on, be like, hey man, I need your help this play. I'm a little down or something like that. It's really just you, the clock, and your opponents, which can make it, nerve-wracking. It can bring all these different emotions to the sport. It's what I live for, man. I'm so excited to do it tomorrow that I'm talking about. So.
I like how you say 5 400s at 50 seconds, which is like I can't even drive that fast around the track. I'm like channeling my like high school track thoughts. It's like nobody was running under a minute in my area. Which is, it's so cool that you could do that. Like, it's amazing what people can accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you talk about like that growth that, you said like a lot of people bet against the metrics. I mean, your PR from high school to college has dropped by nearly a second, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like I want to say like 0.92 or something like that. If I'm doing the math correctly, that is an enormous jump. Like a staggering jump from high school to college. I don't, that is rare to drop that amount of time. You've obviously focused on your craft a ton in that. And when you hit that mark last June, you were at the national championships. You were at USATF Nationals. That was your first appearance at Nationals, I believe, for US National. Was that your first appearance at US Nationals?
Yeah, that was my first US Nationals.
So that's the meat. That's the meat of meats, right? It's every year it's the meat. You're there with some sprinting royalty, right? You're and so like what's that experience like for you, especially you get out of prelims into the semis. Just walk us through that experience for you.
Yeah, I mean it's honestly like an unreal experience, racing against people that I've studied. People that I've studied when I was in high school. Seeing legends in the game that, you want to ask them questions and pick their mind and all of these things, but I really want to beat them too, right? It's not like an opportunity where I can just sit down and just pick their mind without having a chance of just trying to compete against them at the highest level. So running against, some of the world's best at USA's, it motivated me a lot because I could see how much further in the sport there is. There's a big difference between a 9.7 guy, 9.5 guy, and a 10.08 guy, right? Like I'm running against collegiates, and then I go against these pros, and you can feel the difference in speed, the difference in execution, and how they warm up. So it left me with more motivation that the next time I see them, hopefully it can be a different result.
What in that race though, when you ran your 10.08, did you like did something click like while you're running? Did you know while you're running that race that like I'm going to PR here? Could you feel it in the moment?
Yeah, I felt it leading up to it. I've been having a lot of good races some good execution. Coach, Coach, the way he sets up his program, we're supposed to run the fastest times of our lives at the biggest meets. We set those dates and we work back. And this program, when you trust in it and you believe in everything Coach says, and you do the things you're supposed to do, everything comes to fruition. So when the 10:08 came, it was I couldn't wait to see what the time was on the clock, because there was some really fast times. I think a 9:8 or 9.8 came out of that heat. And I was like, man, these guys pushed me to another level today.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But it's also a good feeling because it wasn't the best executed race at all. Like, by all means, there's a lot left in the tank in terms of overall speed in that race.
So go for it, Bern.
Go for it. I was going to say, I ran the 100 in high school. I wasn't very good. I just was on the team, and they're like, just go do it. But getting in the blocks is really cool. What? I don't know. I always thought it was like really fun to get in the blocks. Walk us through, like, you're getting in the blocks. Like, what are you thinking about at that point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about my racing cues. What do I need to do to get what I want to accomplish in this race? I say a prayer. I tell them how thankful I am just to be in the blocks I'm in again. Because there's times in this sport where you never know when you might get back in the blocks, right? So I'm just grateful. I'm focused on what I need to execute, and then part of it's like you got to be an explosive athlete out the blocks, because you can lose a race in the first 2 steps and never get it back. Because the way Coach explains it, like, you can lose 1 inch, and 1 inch turns to 4, 3 to 5. It builds up. It'll build up to a point where you can't really chase people back. So yeah, when you're in the blocks, it comes a point where, like, everything just like slows down. The breathing, you can feel your breath, you can feel the moment. It's like it feels like almost like a movie scene when you're in the blocks of like those type of races.
That's so cool.
That's so cool.
That's so cool. With the class, I can imagine the classical music going through your head. Everything is slowing down. Like, that's fantastic. We don't have you for too much longer. I don't want to take too much of your time, but I got to ask you about this indoor season. Congratulations, Wisconsin Big Ten champions. You are the 60-meter Big Ten champion. Congratulations so much.
Cool.
What is it like to win Big Ten indoors? The last time they won Big Ten indoors, it's been a minute since they won Big Ten indoors. I was in school when that happened. I know Demi Amali, whose record you beat, was running for the team at that time, I think. So what's indoors like? What's championships like for you? And what's it like to win the 60 meters at indoors?
Yeah, it's an awesome feeling to be able to be a champion, right? Especially as a team. That's the missing puzzle. I feel like it gets overlooked in this sport, because an individual champion is a lot easier than winning a team championship. And by all means, an individual championship is still not an easy feat. So the fact that we were able to come together on a day when everyone's assuming Iowa's going to win, Ohio State's going to win, and no one's assuming the Badgers are going to win this conference championship, but we as a group knew we had a chance. If everyone did their job, that we could win this championship. So, there's going to be more individual champions that come to this university. But, I guess I just want to challenge the next generation to win it as a team. Because there's a lot of, it's an individual sport, but winning it as a team takes a true collective effort every single day. There's people who help us win that championship that didn't get to compete the whole year. There's people who came to lift every single day knowing that they were going to redshirt that season. But the energy they bring is how we're going to win this as a team. And it's so much joy winning it as a team that it just makes you want to do it again. But to go back to the indoor championship question, it was more of a relief. I was excited that I won it. But I just also remember, like, on the track thinking, like, just got to do it again. This is the easy part of the sport. The hard part is the continual sustained level of being a champion. Every time you step on the track, everyone wants to beat you. And that's the challenge I'm just excited for tomorrow and Saturday, to see how I can continue to take these steps and see what's ahead.
Well, as we wrap up, what's your goal for the rest of the season, and then the next step after this season?
Mm-hmm. I just want to continue to improve every day. There's things in this sport that, it seems to the naked eye, it might seem impossible. But, I believe that, with the talents that God gave me, that we're entering, that we can do a lot more in the sport. So, I don't want to put a specific time or a goal down on there, because I feel like when you do that, it's almost limiting, right? Like you say, I want to run a 6.7. And then when you run a 6.7, it's like, okay, I want to run 6.6. So, I don't want to put a limit on the goals. I just want to, be the best that I can possibly be in the sport.
All right. And then final question, I'll get you out of here on this. What do you want to be remembered for off the track? What do you want? What do you want Elo Johnson's legacy to be, around the campus, or when just someone says Elo Johnson, what do you want people to think about as the person?
Well, I just want to be known as a loving teammate, someone that you can trust, someone that that, if you have to come for them for any situation, that they're going to be there for you, but they're also going to push you to be the best you can be. And sometimes that can be a little tough, because it requires tough love. But I just want to be known as someone that's a loving teammate that wants you to be the best you can be, even if it's track. If you want to be the best doctor you can be, someone that wants you to be all in on your dreams.
That's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. And I think it's a perfect place for us to wrap up here. We'll let you get off to practice. Best of luck this weekend, this season. Man, good luck.
Thank you.
We will be following you very closely. Where can people find you on social media?
Oh, you can just follow me on Instagram at Lawrence Elo Johnson. So Lawrence L.O. Johnson. Yeah,
all
that's
right. And we will make sure to link to that in the show notes as well. So thank you, everyone, for tuning into the Believe in Badgers podcast on the Believe Podcast Network, presented by betonline.ag. And until next time, on Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.
On Wisconsin.
Let's go.
Yo, man, crush it, dude. This is so fun. Thank you for coming on.